What's up, guys? So, Kirby and the Forgotten Lands has dropped this past week in case you were unaware, and spoiler alert, this game is so much fun. Now, I haven't played a Kirby game in like 10 years, not counting the Kirby games available on the Switch emulators, but honestly, I think this is probably the best Kirby game I've ever played, and it is definitely one of the best Nintendo games that I have played in a very long time. But I'm getting ahead of myself. So in this video, I'm going to be going through this game in the order of things that I find the most enjoyable, and I'll make sure to put time codes in the description if you do want to skip around and see my thoughts on specific subjects. But anyways, let's start it off with the tutorial part of the game. Well, before we get to the tutorial, let's talk about the absolutely beautiful cinematic that we are shown, which, minor spoiler if you haven't started playing it yet, but the cinematic shows you that this game isn't taking place in the same dimension that Kirby is used to, and honestly I think that is a neat little touch to throw in, because it shows how all of the Waddle Dees, Bandana D, and Kirby all get to this brand new and very mysterious world. But after the cinematic, you are now thrust into the introductory portion of the game, which teaches you how to play the game and shows you the gist of the mouthful mode mechanic towards the end. And honestly, I'm not really one for tutorial sections of any game, because with Pokemon, for example, it's the bane of my existence because I've been playing Pokemon for over 15 years, and for RPGs, it's a little tedious because they all more or less function the exact same. But when I tell you that this game actually managed to make the tutorial enjoyable, I had so much fun just going through the entire introduction and enjoying every little portion of it, from the enemies to the surroundings, and just getting acquainted with the whole vibe of the game in general. And then there was even a cherry on top with this adorable cinematic of Kirby just driving around listening to music. This was probably one of the most memorable introduction sections to any game that I have ever played through. Now, since we're discussing the gameplay, let's obviously move into that. If you've played a Kirby game before, I don't really think that there's going to be much that I can say that will sound any different to you, but this game is just so enjoyable and so adorable. I honestly cannot help but smile and awe every time that I see Kirby get a new form, and honestly every single one of Kirby's mouthful modes are so creative, but I don't want to get into any specifics because of spoilers, so I'm just going to move on to the next section, which is that there are two different difficulty settings. And honestly, I don't really think that the harder mode changes anything because it's still extremely easy, and I don't hold it against this game at all because I'm not playing Kirby for a Celeste level of platforming or Elden Ring level of difficulty by any means. But I don't really think it's very surprising because this game is very laid back, and yes, it can be stressful at times, but by no means is this game difficult. This game is literally the epitome of a comfort game, and I think that's why I enjoy it so much, because I get to see my favorite pink blob just exist, and I don't have to try extremely hard to finish a certain section or anything. It's just an adorable game in the same vein as Animal Crossing essentially, meaning that you don't have to try your ass off for anything, you just experience what this game has in store for you. And outside of that, for the gameplay, I have one extra thing that I want to cover, which are the abilities and upgrades. With the ability, they introduced two brand new ones, and I actually really enjoy the dynamic that both of them have, because being able to dig around in the drill mode is really fun personally, because I just think it's a cool little gimmick. And with the gun thingy, I don't really have much to say for the ability itself, more for the thing that you have to swallow to get it. It's really annoying. And honestly, I think that's the best thing that I can say, because if you're able to annoy me while playing this, as I said, relatively easy game, it's commendable in itself. I really enjoy the little mini bosses that more often than not end up giving you a brand new ability every time you defeat them, because obviously they are some of the more difficult sections of the game. And aside from that, I just love seeing the designs and the interactions that you can have with them. And though they pop up to essentially prevent you from steamrolling through the game, it really doesn't feel like they're stopping you from anything all that much. It genuinely feels like it flows really well, to me at least. And I really enjoy that every time you get a new ability, the following section of the level that you're on pretty much revolves around that ability. It makes you utilize the ability to its fullest extent, and in some situations even makes you use it in ways that you probably wouldn't have thought of. And now for the upgrades. I'm not entirely sure if upgrades to Kirby's abilities are a new thing or not in these games, games, but honestly, shout out to the development team for some of these extremely creative, not only mechanical changes, but also visual changes to them too, like with the spike ball ability. At first, you're kind of like a porcupine, and then as soon as you upgrade it, you become a ball of just a bunch of pointy things like a bee stinger, a cactus, etc. And I honestly don't get why I like it so much, because it just looks like a hodgepodge of ridiculousness, but I digress. And now I'm going to be discussing the story, which outside of saving all of the Waddle Dees and rebuilding Waddle Dee Town, as far as I can tell, the rest of the story is really just up to interpretation, because as any Kirby fan knows, most of the bosses from these games are normally horrible monsters, and in this game there isn't really much of that. So far it's mostly just abandoned cities, vacant malls, and plenty of other things, all mostly revolving around human-made things, all with different corporations plastered across a majority of the levels. So take from that what you will, and somewhat spoilers, but the further you progress in the game, the more and more pollution and whatnot you end up seeing from these same corporations. So honestly, if anything, I think the story of this game is more social commentary on the state of our planet more than anything. Especially when you consider that some of the upgrades for Kirby's abilities also tend to incorporate human-made elements, and most of Kirby's mouthful modes also happen to revolve around man-made things as well. I just think it's a little too close of a coincidence, but that's just me. But as I said, it's all up to interpretation. And that semi-morbid subject out of the way, let's talk about a lighter subject, which also happens to be the final thing that I want to talk about. The last thing that I want to talk about is the soundtrack. So normally, when I make a video like this, I don't really cover the soundtrack for games because I don't ever really have much to say about the music aside from how enjoyable I find it or whatever. But for this game, I'm going to make an exception because I could not stop myself from humming along to almost every song in this game, and they all fit every level so well personally. And with some of the cinematics, I don't know if it's intentional or not, but some of the beats in these songs line up perfectly with an interaction or a reaction, and to me, it's absolutely perfect. And as of right now, I'm a little over halfway done with the game, but so far I literally have zero criticisms of this game. And as I said in the beginning of this video, it's genuinely one of the most enjoyable Nintendo games that I've played in a very long time, and I think this is an amazing first shot at a 3D platforming game for Kirby. I hope that in the future they continue to make more games like this. But with that being said, let me know what you think of Kirby and the Forgotten Land. Do you think that this game is as great as I do? And if you do, what's your favorite part of the game so far? And if you don't really enjoy this game so much, let me know why. I would love to see your thoughts as well. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and hopefully I'll catch you in the next one.